iConz of Rock presents.
That's cool. So now, speaking of the Minor Birds, though, you played with Bruce Cockburn.
Yeah, that
which, I mean, well, that was a real departure from rock and roll for you, wasn't it?
Well, it was, what it was supposed to be was Rick and I went back to Toronto to reform this new Minor Birds thing.
Right.
And I got a couple of guys from that Bobby, Chris and the Imperials, the keyboard guy and the drummer, and I was looking for a guitar player and couldn't find anybody that wasn't taken or whatever, and I ran into the Staccatos, this band out of Ottawa that later became Five Man Electrical Band, and they told me about this Bruce Cockburn guy who had just left the Children, some group in Ottawa. So I called him, and he came to Toronto, and I tried him out, and he seemed to have a good lead, feel. So we got together and started rehearsing as the new Minor Birds, and Rick never made it to the first rehearsal because he got popped for a breaking and entering charge. He apparently, before we went to Motown the first time, broke into a clothes store in the Village in Toronto with a couple other guys. And one of the guys fingered him. And when we got back to form this new Minor Birds, he was in jail. So every day I'd talk to him wondering when they were going to let him out. But he was a draft dodger also from Buffalo, where he was from, in the Navy. Right. A lot of American young guys went to Canada and hid out. And he was being held for deportation. Yeah. So we kept rehearsing and rehearsing, and to stay alive I got John Craig Eaton of Eaton's of Canada, who also backed Neil Young and Rick in the first Minor Birds, right, to come in and help us pay our rent while we were waiting for Rick. But as we were waiting, we started rehearsing tunes that Cockburn brought to the sessions, and they were more folk-oriented,
sure,
folk tunes and stuff. And I said, well, we got to stay alive, and Rick it didn't look like he was going to make it back too soon, so we wanted to gig. So we put a set together of Cockburn stuff, and I called it the Flying Circus and painted the drums like those props the elephants use in the circus,
Yeah.
And from there we became the Flying Circus and with Cockburn, and we went on to do a few things. We did the Key Clubs in Ottawa and Canada, and got a manager who promoted big gigs and owned a music store. So we were in good hands, Harvey Glatt. And we opened for Roy Orbison at the Capitol Theatre in Ottawa. And one little mention of that, before Roy came out, the Candymen, his group, did the whole Sgt. Pepper album with a Farfisa organ.
Oh, no.
And I swear to you, it was fantastic.
That's not an easy gig.
No, and it just blew my mind. These guys had it rehearsed perfect. Then we opened for Wilson Pickett at Massey Hall and at the Capitol Theatre again the following week. So, and it was like working good, but I wasn't really into the music.
Right.
Well,
I mean, it's a tough gig to go from Rick James to Bruce Cockburn, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you have to admit, music is truly the only universal language.
Yes, it is.
And it's 8 notes, whichever way you look at it, and it proves to me that if you are a music fan of any stripe, we lived in Nashville for 4 years. I never thought I'd say I'm a country music fan, but there's some great, incredible lyrics, great songs, great structures. So.
I'll tell you, some of the players today are just,
they're
monster is the word, some fantastic players.
So, well, now there's a, from Rick James to Bruce Cockburn.
Yeah.
And if Rick hadn't allegedly been a naughty boy, you never know. You see, you might not have wound up there. So that's what a story. What an amazing answer.